All right, well, it's 11:30 as far as my iPhone says. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure more participants will roll in as we get rolling also. Um,
Right.
Good morning. My name is Matt Gonzalez, and I'm the business IT at the Elkhorn Valley campus for Metro Community College, and I will be the moderator of the session. A couple of things before we get started. Dr. Nina Nazar, our Zoom facilitator, so if you have any technical issues or have any questions, please put them in the chat box and collect those and you can use those for the Q&A later. All right. So I also want to take this time to introduce our panel. I'm going to go ahead and start with Trish Johnson. She's a graduate of Wayne State. She's worked with Metro Community College on and off for the last 22 years. She currently advises transfer students at the Elkhorn Valley campus, and she also works as an FYE advisor. Trish, would you please share some more about yourself?
Oh gosh. I've worked at Metro off and on for a long time. It's always a good place. They've been good to me. I was home with my kids for a little while when they were younger. But yeah, I'm married, have 3 grown kids, a couple puppies. Love my job.
Awesome. Thank you, Trish.
You bet.
Up on the panel is Julie Novak. She's recently came to us to MCC from Texas A&M, so thank you, Aggies. She moved here with her husband and her 2 dogs because her husband's actually active duty Air Force, and so they're stationed here at Offutt.
Hi, yeah, I actually came here from Pensacola, Florida. I was the senior program coordinator of enrollment services in the registrar's office at the University of West Florida. And before then, I had the honor of working at Texas A&M University as an academic coach. So I've kind of been all around different areas of higher ed. Currently advise for health careers at Metro, and just super happy to be here.
Thank you, Julie. Gloriella, prior to MCC, worked at Bellevue University in a variety of roles for 10 years. She's been has been advising here at MCC the last 2 years, or 2 years this September. She has advised business and IT programs and is currently advising transfer students at the South Omaha campus. Thank you, Gloria.
Hi, good morning, everyone. As Matt said, I have been working in higher education for a couple of years, and I found that that's my passion. I am originally from Panama, and I came here about, I would say, probably around 30 years ago. I had studied in Panama, but I did not finish my program, and mainly, I will say there was not such a thing as academic advising at the time. And I think that probably influenced or affected my ability to complete my program back then. So I came to the United States and I put myself through Bellevue University as a student. And I earned my bachelor's degree and my master's degree in communication, and I got a certificate in executive coaching. I combined it between Metro and Bellevue. I have about 12 years of experience working in higher education. I have experience also presenting. I have presented at the NWIL conference in UNL, last year at the Metro Community College Academic Advising Conference, and also at the UNL Academic Advising Conference 2020. I did a poster presentation. My goal is usually to help students achieve their goals, and I align these by following Metro Community College mission. When I'm not advising, I am either coaching my students, I am gardening, painting, writing, reading. And I will say that yesterday I attended the panel of students and I could relate to what many of the students say. I am a single parent. I did all these as a single parent. I was a full-time worker and I achieved my bachelor's and my master while taking care of everything also pretty much. And I hope then I can pass this on to my students. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloriella. Next on the panel is Mr. Hans Ruden. Before making his home at MCC for the last 7.5 years, Hans worked at the National Aviation Academy as an operations manager, and here at MCC, he is the embedded advisor specifically for fire science, diesel, auto collision, and utility line, just to name a few. So coming from Boston, which I learned today, I had no idea. So Hans.
Thank you, Matt. It's good to be with each one of you. I did receive a BA in religion from Trevecca Nazarene University in Nashville, Tennessee. And I do remember a key role that my faculty advisor played in my life, as well as since I was from the country, I had my horizons expanded in the areas of culture, diversity. And since my college was in Nashville, of course, musically. When I moved to Omaha, I couldn't believe a perfect fit with more trade students to work with. And I found total respect at Metropolitan Community College for their skills, their effect on the industry as the next generation in the field, and their future full of providing for their family and making a difference in the lives of many, whether it be problems, providing electricity, or saving lives and property. And then one personal note, my wife is the one who asked me kindly to join her in a couple of MCC classes, and I've had fun. A couple of them have been how to build your own electric guitar, and that is a credit class. Also, sculpture, we've taken that about 4 times, and we have some neat art around our home, and then even American Sign Language. So it's good to be with all of you.
Thank you, Hans. Last but not least, we have Mr. Robert Lingen. He's a retired Air Force, spent some time with the state troopers here in Nebraska. And then when Robert completed his master's in human relations, pivot to higher education, and he was also able to obtain his advising certificate from K-State. And we've had Robert for the last 15 years here at Metro Community College. He's worked in various advising programs, but he currently works at the South Omaha campus advising health students. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Matt. Actually, I'm at the Fort campus, but.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
But thank you, Matt, and thank you all for joining our session. Like Matt said, I've been here at Metro now for over 15 years. I got here, I had everything done relative to my master's degree, and while I was still working on the State Patrol, except my internship. I needed to do an internship to finish my master's. And Charlene, my wife, who often has more confidence in me than I have in myself, urged me to resign from the State Patrol and finish my master's. And at a certain point, I finally put out some feelers and got a lot of responses, but Metro offered me an internship. And in order to finish the internship, I had to do 40 hours a week at some place for the internship. So I couldn't work full time as a state trooper and do 40 hours a week on an internship. So something had to go, and so I resigned my badge from the State Patrol. I love being a state trooper, I really did. But Metro offered me an internship, and I took it. And I don't know if any of you remember Dr. William Dodd, who was in charge of the TRIO program. So I worked with Dr. Dodd in the TRIO program to complete my internship, and never looked back. Can't imagine why I ever did anything else. So that's me.
Thanks, Robert. So then we're going to go ahead and stay with you, Robert, and I'm going to fire off the first question, okay?
Okay, all right.
Academic advising has always been as much about advisors learning. Academic advising has always been as much about advisors learning and development as student learning and development. How working in the COVID-19 environment impacted your own continued learning and development?
That's an excellent question, Matt, and I really appreciate the opportunity to answer. One thing I noticed that came to me early on when we got into this was, hey, I need to take another look at my personal philosophy of advising, and more specifically, I consider myself an advising practitioner and scholar, and as such, the main thing I realized that I had to look at was those three components of academic advising: that relational component, that informational component, and that conceptual component. And I realized that another look at exactly how I'm applying myself to all of this. For instance, that informational piece. When we first came into this thing, it was every day, and we're still coming out with new policies and procedures every day. Certainly, something new has to be addressed each week. But as far as that informational piece goes, I think the most significant part of this was certainly the policies and procedures. We were changing something, or we had to address the way we were doing things on a daily basis, like how we referred folks to like DSS, how we communicated with our students, and so on. The other end of that informational piece was the resources. How are we connecting students to resources? I think resources was probably the most significant piece I had to take another look at, and we all had to take another look at, as how we're connecting our students to our resources. Some of our students were, when this thing hit, reduced to their basic survival needs. Students didn't have, the job went away, money went away for groceries and so on. So
Robert,
yeah.
I'm curious because I know that you're the health advisor in kind of relation to what you're talking about. Can you give an example, like nursing students having to get fake TB tests and stuff like that? So then how did that kind of change?
Absolutely. That was one of the most critical pieces there, in that, we finally got around to doing everything remotely. We had to get that TB test, the testing center finally got around to providing remote testing for the TBs. The applications that the students have to submit their applications, and we had to learn how to download those applications and complete them, and so on. Students had to continue to get their CNA license and so on. Had to get that.
Robert, I'm going to go ahead and cut you off a little bit because Julie Novak also works with health students, and I'm curious to hear, what that looked like for her.
Okay.
It's much of what Robert said with our applications, figuring out how to do it electronically. Like, I know I don't have a printer at home, so I can't expect students to have a printer and a scanner to be able to print and then fill out these applications to send back. Talking about different apps on their phones, like I use Genius Scan to convert a picture to a PDF to be able to send supplemental documentation. Robert mentioned the CNA applications. Students need to have a negative TB test in order to be able to submit that for the class. And so finding providers that were even doing TB tests initially, because it's not deemed an emergency or essential. And so some of that was a little bit of a challenge for us to be able to navigate with. And we just got very flexible. I told students, if you want to send me a picture, if you can scan it, if you want to print it out and fill it out and email it, we created a section sheet of how to fill things out electronically through Adobe Greeter. We just pretty much said whatever's easiest for you to get us the information, we will work with it.
So were you being a lot of proactive work on that with the nursing students, knowing that there's deadlines and those sort of things, or were you waiting for students to reach you?
We tried to be fairly proactive about it. Like we created that guide of how to create an electronic application. After a few students had said, hey, I'm not sure how to do this, and I was just emailing it to my students individually, but as advising health career advisors, we decided it would just be easiest to have one document that's consistent and to be sent to everyone. So we tried to be as proactive about it as we could. Of course, there's always last minute things of, oh, we didn't think about that, let's get something together. But as much as we could, we tried.
You're almost learning as you're creating for somebody else, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Hans, so that's health, right? And you work with mostly trades and fire science or in line school. So how is that different for you in CDL licenses and stuff like that? How have you guys, how did your communications and way of doing things change?
It is much the same because we have students who need to go to the DMV, and so they've had issues with that and do their preemptive or their testing to get their permit, and then they need to get a Department of Transportation physical, but some of those offices haven't been open. But I really like what you said, because we've been going the same route, both with CDL and the fire science program, where they have to submit applications. As long as they can take a picture of something and email it or text it, it's legible, we can make it happen and get them going in the right direction.
Awesome. Thank you. Does Gloriella, Trish, you guys have anything to add as far as kind of those kind of workflows that you've changed to students that you work with?
Mine hasn't changed a whole lot. I do a lot with transfer. I mean, the early childhood education, some of those have some applications, but no, so far I haven't run into too many issues with mine.
I think the biggest issue I faced was submitting a substitution form. How to get that down. It was a challenge. Thankfully, is very familiar with the process, and she stepped in and helped it. So I would say teamwork is something that has really helped. Whenever we encounter any issues with the resources, I think teamwork helped us tremendously through this time.
Trish, this next question's for you. What skills have you learned? Zoom, listening skills, eTrieve, etc.
Right. Anybody who's worked with me knows I'm probably not the most techie person. So I think too many years at home with the kids, I don't know. But it's been easier than I thought as far as the Zoom and the whole bit. And like Gloriella mentioned, the substitution petitions that we're doing electronically, that teamwork definitely, that rang true with me too, because our front counter staff really has helped getting degree audits and the unofficial transcripts and all that to submit with. But also, yes, the active listening, the empathy, all of the soft skills, I think I've really had to sharpen, because you have the nonverbals when you're talking. If you're not doing a Zoom appointment and you're doing a phone appointment, you don't really have the nonverbals to see. So you're picking up, you really have to tune into different things that they're saying. The empathy, I mean, we were learning to do things at home just like them, and could relate to them that way. So I think that helped. I've had to become a little more organized maybe with my emails, because they're flooding in. Things that would normally be answered at the front counter, or maybe if you saw a student in the hallway, now you get an email, even more so than calls. I get tons of emails. So just to be a little more organized with those. I think intrusive advising more so for me, just kind of trying to, touch base with them a little more. It's easy to just give them a quick call to see if they followed up with some resources that I referred them to. And I can just call them, even if it's like off the clock, but just to say, hey, did you connect with the testing center? Did you connect with the store? Whereas before I maybe didn't do that as much when we were in the office, but I just feel like just maybe they need that too, kind of like we're kind of all floating and just trying to see what's going on. But I think that's probably about it.
Gloriella, can you share your experience with all the new learning of tools and technologies?
Yes, I have three main areas, and I want to highlight. But I will also add that technology for me, especially Zoom, has been very helpful. How many of you think that I have an accent? I do, right? So when I'm talking over the phone with my students, a lot of times they don't understand what I am trying to say, especially if we're not on the same page. We're not looking at the same document. So Zoom has become a great tool for me to smooth my accent because the student can see what I am saying. They can read my lips, and I can share with them what I am trying to say. And that when you put that together, now this sees what I'm trying to tell them, right? But I will focus in a more important area of the learning as an academic advisor, as a human being. I think I have learned a lot from my students. So basically, COVID-19 has provided us with the opportunity to test the human spirit. We can see the glass half full or half empty. We had to choose how we want to see that and learn from what we have, use what we have. I feared when all this started, fears I have gained it. Well, now I have gained self-awareness about my own capacity to learn, to grow, to lead, and to motivate others and myself. When all the crisis started, I found myself getting panic attacks and feelings of anxiety. I worried about my health and the unexpected. When college announced it, that we were moving online, we were asked to learn a series of tools and prepare our computer, our laptops to work from home. So I focused on the new task and learn all the tools and prepare my stuff. And as I was doing that, I noticed that the anxiety went away. I remember stepping outside of my office and my boss was passing by. And I say, "Hey, I just found something really interesting about myself. When I am learning, when my brain is learning, my brain does not worry. The worrying goes away and I'm happy." And that's a really weird thing that I learned by myself about myself. So I also learn from my students. They, probably on through the same roller coaster of emotions that we are going through. And their world probably was shaken, not only by the news that they needed to adapt to the online learning, but by the fact that their entire world was changing rapidly. The financial impact of COVID-19 was in everybody's mind, and families faced the prospect of losing their income, and despite all these challenges, a huge amount of students decided to continue and give it a try to the online learning. And I find that is fascinating how they face the challenges and they transition it and they made their best effort, and many of them did succeed in this effort.
Gloriella, it sounds like what I heard was that you had a time that you had a moment that you had to take a moment, right? But then you got empowered by the learning, and then you're also you're being empowered by watching students persevere. It's really cool. And I want to stay on that topic and ask Han about, because it was a very emotional time when we had to transition off of campus. I remember other universities or campuses were closing before us, and we were kind of like, what's going to happen to us? What's going to happen to us? And I recall I worked with Trish, during that whole time. We're all, trying to catch students and be a safety net and a support for students. But at the same time, she has a son who's a travel abroad student in Spain. you have to trust that the university that he's attending, they're doing everything for your son. So I'm curious, Trish, what was that like during that time?
Yeah, just kind of scary, trying to get him back. And I think he did have great support, both from the University of Minnesota, which is his school, and then his professors in Spain. He had to wrap everything up online, and it was a little trying. And I guess just you kind of felt a little bit of a ripoff because he went over there to experience things. And then here he's still, it ended up okay. He wants to go back. But yeah, I mean, just there again, empathy, feeling for him, feeling for our students who want to be on campus and have that experience, and sitting at home online, or, trying to make do. So,
Robert, you look like you have something you'd like to share.
Well, it's just that this piece talks to that relational component of advising. Trish was talking about how she handled it with her son. Our daughter, who lives in Cincinnati, tested positive for the virus last week, and or the week before, and she had her follow-up test here a few days ago, and so she tested negative. But I was really distracted that first week when we found out that she had tested positive. Knee-jerk response was to pack up the car and head to Cincinnati. And Charlotte said, well, we can't do that because we're supposed to stay away from folks and stuff. So we're going to have to wait this out. But Tom McDonald talked about how we had to, in the leadership thing yesterday, he talked about how all of us pulled together and made this thing happen. And it was a challenge. It has been a challenge in more ways than one. But I still agree that this Metro family really pulled together and made this thing happen for us. And so, I was of the impression when we, until this thing happened, I was fully of the impression that academic advising, counseling, doctoring could only be done face to face. I never really thought about the broader idea of one-to-one. And so, I've had 2 doctor's appointments on the phone since this thing hit, and so on. So we can do it differently, and I think we're going to see a lot of this continue the way we're doing right.
I agree with you, Robert. Hans, how about you? Can we hear from you as far as what that experience was like during that transition?
Well, my wife was exposed to a coworker who had been diagnosed, and so we had to quarantine for 2 weeks just for that exposure, even though she had been tested negatively. And then after those 2 weeks, about a week later, she was starting to feel some symptoms, and then she was tested positively. I'll never forget that. We were getting her back motorcycle tire replaced away, and we were sitting in the waiting room, and she got the call. So she was asking them all kinds of questions, and she was crying, and told her she should stay in a different part of the house and not be anywhere near their dogs. And so it was traumatic, but she's recovered. She's back to work even today, and we thank God for his help with that. But it really helps me identify with students who I come in contact with virtually, who are experiencing some of those feelings of being alone or isolated, even if they haven't gone through all of that. Still the idea of just being able to be with family, and they're younger, so they might have less resources or life experience to really help ground them.
Julie, do you have anything to add on that topic?
Just the transition home.
Just the transitioning of balancing your home life with also trying to serve students, because during the time, we're all student focused, but at the same time, we're dealing with these household issues while we're working, right?
Yeah, and I'm fortunate I don't have kids. I don't know how parents have done it, homeschooling their children, like super superheroes for sure. So I was very fortunate. I have a laptop at work, so the transition was pretty easy. My husband was deemed essential personnel, so he was still reporting to base every day. So luckily I had the house with the dogs and my laptop, and so it was just a little bit of figuring out the technology component, learning to set up Google Voice. I'd been doing Zoom before, so that was helpful. But it's also just that new normal, and everything happened so quick. It was all of a sudden we're going to do split shifts, and then I think it wasn't even like 2 or 3 full days that it was no, everyone's at home. And so just really having to roll with the punches just as easily as you can.
So since, this transition has changed how we focus and do those things. So, I mean, have you seen any differences on how you relate to students, or how are you sharing more stories? Like, how does that work, Trish?
Yeah, I mean, I think one story that I have a student that I work with that's probably about my age, and she was sounding very stressed, and she was she didn't really verbalize some of it, but again, that's where the active listening, I could just tell she was kind of on the verge of tears. It was the last day to drop with the full refund, and I think it was a chemistry class online, and she was just really struggling. Referred her to the tutoring services, things like that. Checked with her later that night, and she decided to stick it out. And I've checked with her since, and she's doing fine. So yeah, just kind of relating to her, that knowing it's tough and all that. And like I said, she was a non-traditional student. That was an additional stress, I think, for her. But yeah, just kind of connecting to her that way and giving her a little pep talk maybe.
Julie, how about you?
Most of the students I work with are non-traditional, and so being able to be empathetic to everything that they have going on. Most of them, I do work with a lot of female students for nursing, and most do have children. And so being understanding, and also when we're planning ahead, knowing that this may not be going away anytime soon. So realistically, when we're looking at what classes you want to take, like, what does your home life look like? Do you have childcare? Are you still working full time? Because working with healthcare students, a lot of them are already in the healthcare profession. And so acknowledging that they are in the heart of all of that's going on. And so trying to just be as supportive. Trish said pep talks. I find myself being a cheerleader a lot of the time, and just letting them know that, like, you can do this and everything's going to be okay. I have done a lot of referring to the tutoring center for a lot of the science courses. Also, just the educational part of it, of explaining what are the different modalities we're offering. What does online look like? What does remote delivery look like? Because students we have this lingo and know what that's going to mean. But when students look at the catalog and they see remote delivery, they're like, I don't know what that is. So I think for me, with the relationship part of it, is just being that supportive person, knowing that if they have questions, they can always come to me. And humor has been really good too. I was talking to one woman on the phone, and the program she wants to transfer into says, you need an ACT score. And she's like, oh goodness, it's been years. And I was laughing with her because when I applied to grad school, I had to pay a ton of money because they told me my scores were archived. And so we were joking. I'm like, let me blow the dust off of these scores, So just kind of bonding on some of those personal experiences and being able to laugh has been, I think, a good relationship builder as well.
Great answer, Julie. Gloriella, so have you experienced any change on how you advise with students as far as course selection moving forward? Has students been a little bit more attentive of what classes they're going to take versus, when you say, hey, you just need a humanities, social science, and they're kind of just looking over and maybe not really thinking hard about that one, but maybe they are now. Have you seen any of those changes?
Oops, you're muted.
Sorry about that. One of these changes I have noticed, or issues that I have noticed, I think that when we transition it into the online, course availability has been affected. And I have encountered a couple of situations where the student is near graduation. It could have finished it in the summer, but the course is not available. It is very hard to have to tell the student, let's go and try to find a possible solution, and hope for the best. But I think the main thing is let the student to know that we are there, and we're going to try to resolve the issue, one way or another. We will work with the department and try to find the answer for them. Also, selecting courses, I think that a lot of times the students, especially students that are used to in class, and I will say myself, my strength is not math. If I had to take online math, I will be very myself, right? So I had noticed that trend, and a lot of students are postponing their math classes for when the class is available in the classroom. So those are.
It might be kind of math or heavier loaded courses that are being postponed from what you're saying.
Yes.
Hans, I'm curious with the trades where, oftentimes being on campus is the only way you can kind of deliver some of that information. So as the way that you're ed planning, has that changed a little bit on account of not knowing what happens after fall?
Yes, it does, because we're trying to figure out exactly what's coming up next. We're all in it together. One thing I was thinking about, Matt, was Charlie Nutt showed a picture of the NACADA poster that said, "I advise, you decide." And that's just a fantastic reminder for me, because especially remotely, well, for example, last night I was talking with a student about a couple of choices. They were both equal and would fit his degree perfectly. And I could tell that he wanted me to make the decision for him, but I kept on offering both as an alternative. But it reminded me, it's so tempting to veer into prescriptive advising because we aren't face to face. So it's sometimes harder to have more of a conversation. It'd be easy just to say, well, this would be best for you. This is what you should do. But I refuse to fall into that trap. Oh, and by the way, I know that Trish had something that you wanted to add.
Oh, I was just going to say, Amy Holtmeyer and I were talking the other day, and she brought up a good point about if you have students now that come for an appointment, let's say a phone appointment, and maybe they don't have their ACT scores, or they don't have something that maybe it's not as big of a pain to reschedule and make another phone appointment. Whereas if they're an on-campus appointment and they took off work or they came in and all that, kind of bad saying, oh, you know what, we're gonna have to make another appointment or whatever. So that's one benefit maybe of saying, hey, we can do this again. We'll just call tomorrow if you get your ACT scores or whatever. So I just wanted to add. So Amy had a good point yesterday when we were talking.
So you think that, with this new style, students really have the ability to access you more quickly if there is a rescheduling?
Yeah, I think so.
Robert,
maybe you're off work at 5, but you don't mind for some reason calling somebody at 20 after if it works better for them. Whereas if you're on campus and you're home, I'm not so likely to call a student, but now I do.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't know. For them, it's good.
When you left campus, it kind of gave you a boundary, and then you might have done so much more at home. And then now in this new environment, you're saying you're more likely to be available even after hours.
Sometimes, yeah. But I also can do laundry on the side where I wasn't able to do that when I was on campus. So
right.
Trade-off.
I think that's great, right? I think that's kind of it shows that, hey, I'm willing to do these things extra because I know that I'm getting it on the back end a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Hans, you're laughing. Are you finding some new ways to use your time and serve students?
My wife has been so much happier with me because I've gotten more done around the house, but also students. It doesn't matter to me if I happen to have the TV on and my wife is playing a game on the phone or something. I don't mind just sending a quick text to a student who's responded. But one thing I was thinking about that is harder for me, we have a campus that has a system for ID making that has had some issues over the last year. So we didn't get their IDs created on campus in terms of having a picture in the system. So one challenge has been when I pull up their student file, I can't, probably 25 to 30% of them, I can't see that picture that reminds me of exactly who I've been interacting with for the last year. So that's something that I want to do better when we're back to some sort of normalcy. I want to make sure we get those student IDs created so it helps all of us keep everything fresh.
Good point, Hans. Robert, you had your hand up earlier. What would you like to say?
I sort of forgot. No, I didn't. Well, it's just that, you know, it's this environment makes it even more critical that students are independent and have that self-authorship and able to do for themselves. I often find myself telling students that, for instance, like Hans was saying earlier, some student wanted him to do something for him, but I find myself like with students wanting to select classes and so on, and they want me to select them for them. And I find myself telling them that, hey, you know, I'm not doing my job if I deny you your opportunity to practice your decision-making skills. So in this environment, it's really critical that students learn how to you know, do things on their own and make decisions for themselves.
Hey,
Yeah.
Robert, question for you. From what you're saying, it made me self-reflect a little bit. I think I'm as guilty as anyone from running from one office to the other to grab an answer that I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you say that in this current climate, as far as for anyone on the panel, you know, how this change has happened, and I think I've been more self-reliant. I think I found more things on the website that I probably just, you know, it's easy just to ask somebody real quick. So I think when I, you know, moderating the student panel, they said they were so much more focused on their Zooms that their attention spans actually got bigger. Has anybody else experienced that, Gloriola? You're muted.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question for me?
I'm going to go ahead and just send it to Julie, and then we can follow back up with you.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I don't know if my attention span has gotten better, but I can say I think I've gotten a lot better at multitasking between, you know, having a student on the phone and then having to look something up and being a newer advisor with the college, as Charlie Nutt mentioned and you mentioned, Matt, like you can't just run next door and ask a question. So it's between while I'm on the phone with a student, I'm trying to Google search or search on our website, and at the same time, I might be sending someone a text or a Skype message of, hey, what do you know about this? So that I can still provide the information for the student I'm in the session with. And at the same time, maybe they're emailing unofficial transcripts for us to look at, which means you got to pull up the equivalencies on Transfer Nebraska. So I feel like my multitasking has gotten better because even in one meeting with a student, you could be looking at like 5 different screens. And also I feel like my note-taking on sessions has gotten better because I want to be able to put in a really good note, but also I want to send a really good follow-up email. So including all the documents that typically I would have just printed for a student in my office. Well, now I need to email it so that they have a reference, because I know myself, if I don't write something down, I'm probably going to forget it. And so if a student doesn't have something to supplement that information, they're probably going to forget it. So I think that I've kind of gotten better a little bit with multitasking, organization, like note-taking on sessions.
Hans, do you have anything to add?
Well, one thing I'm thinking is I really have a hard time sometimes conveying to students how much I care for them. And even though in person it's good, when it comes time to a crisis like this, I'm more focused on seeing how they're doing as individuals. And they're so used to dropping in on an office situation. It's like a familiar voice that kind of brings them back to what MCC is all about in terms of being really a family.
I'm going to go ahead and end our Q&A for the panel. Before we open the floor to questions, I know everybody wants to share experiences and has questions, but I want to just thank the panel for doing this. It's not easy to, you know, open yourselves up, especially when it's colleagues and peers and whatnot. So thank you for agreeing to be a part of this panel today. Do we have some questions ready to fire at the panel?
Yes, we do. So for everyone listening, please type any questions you have into the chat box and we can try to get to them. We have about 15 minutes. But one question that came via Twitter was for, so they're saying, Hans, you had mentioned the fact that, you know, you're watching TV and a question comes up and you're able to answer. So one of the questions that came up is, how are we setting boundaries between our professional and personal life, because COVID has kind of blurred those boundaries? We're kind of carrying more work home. We feel like we're working more hours. So can you speak a little to that?
Yes, I have to admit that's probably really calling me out, because I told a former supervisor of mine that sometimes I would just answer a question on the weekend if I was looking for something fun to do. And then he said, well, that might be good for you, but you need to be careful that you aren't setting that precedent for other advisors to, you know, to have to try to live up to what you're doing. So I do need to be extremely careful about that. So I probably need to backtrack and be more aware of my boundaries.
Mm-hmm. And another question that came up is, with all of this empathy that we are displaying for our students, it's really easy to reach burnout. Can you give us some tips or tricks that you have utilized to manage emotional burnout, especially when you're dealing with your own crisis at home?
So I think the session on self-care really touched on this ahead of time. The idea that you can't pour from your cup if it's empty. So really taking the time to do those things that make us feel fulfilled. And it's different for every single person. I think also a big thing is setting those boundaries. And it's hard when your work and home life are in the same location. But being very mindful of that. Even like on weekends, I've had to remind myself to turn my Google Voice on Do Not Disturb, because students don't know that you're not working past 5 o'clock. And so they're gonna call, and then I feel obligated, like, oh, someone's calling me, I should answer this. So trying to put up some of those barriers. But I think with the burnout component, doing that self-care, practicing things that make you feel whole and happy, and also celebrating the small wins. And so I could have a week just of like fairly upset students, you know, but I might have one that is just so grateful and thankful. And so trying to focus in on the positives, even if it's just something small.
Another question that came in, thank you, Julie. Another question that came in is, how is your institution supporting you during this time?
Let's go ahead. Go ahead, Robert.
No.
Matt.
I think everybody's jumping into answer. That's a good sign, right?
Matt can answer a question. That is a good sign.
You know, I got to say, I've always felt that as an institution, Metro has been good about supporting employees. And so I think even more so, they stressed or paid more attention to how employees are being supported along with our students. And so I think Metro has done an excellent job of doing that. I remember the first week or so, first month or so, we were into this, and somebody said, take a break and call a friend. You know, I don't know who said that. I think it was Sheila. It might have been Sheila or Tom McDonald or somebody. But I think Metro has done an excellent job in supporting all of us in this time.
Trish, did you want to say something?
I would just agree. We've had great, for a long time, we had meetings with our campus group twice a week. Now we're gonna just recently now went to once a week, but that's always nice, a little checkpoint. Have a Zoom meeting with your coworkers that you used to get to see every day. Just support from above. I really feel too like it's kind of been a family feel for me for years. So yeah, that's all I have to add.
And in one of, I think Nicole asked a question. She said, do you feel you have bonded with some staff more during this time?
I think it's different than being on campus, but I feel that I have connected with other staff at other campuses more being at home. Also, again, I've only been here since December, so learning some of the different contacts to be able to ask, whereas before I could go to a coworker or go to the front desk and they would be able to assist, whereas now I had to learn just different people in different areas and departments to be able to get questions answered. So I feel like that's helped. And it's just been nice sharing experiences with coworkers. We'll send little emails of, hey, this happened, just like little celebrations. So that's been nice too. Gloriella, I think you had something too.
Yes, I have bond very especially with Soromaja campus. I don't think then I will have been able to lead my students to success without the support of my team, my coworkers, my supervisor. I think then it basically the whole entire crew, Metro Community College, I'm talking about the Soromaja campus, but in reality, the whole entire college has become one, and that has been very helpful to have communication coming through time. Everything has been very supportive for us, and I'm very thankful for the way then we have interact with each other and how people have volunteer to help when something is not working. Somebody step in and say, hey, I take care of that, I help, or this is the answer, here is what we need to do. So it's been very helpful. So I will say that if I had to say something, I have bonded with almost every one of my team members through this time.
Another question that came in is, we're seeing a lot of dependence on technology during this time. How are we still able to build relationships with students who are, historically vulnerable or do not have access to technology?
Phone call.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what I've been doing, a lot of phone. The students I've been working with have been fine with phone appointments. I always offer if they want to do a Zoom, but a lot of them seem fine with the phone appointments. So
And I'd like to just share something on that has really been, just the Zoom age has really made advising easy for me. Was oftentimes, even when we were able to come to campus, students would schedule phone appointments because it's more convenient. But I know that I would get frustrated sometimes when they're doing it while they're on the interstate or they're doing it at a parking lot or a pickup line. They're just not focused on their appointment. And they're not at a desktop. But with the Zoom and I'm able to share my screen, like that's made that less frustrating on account that how they can see the courses and everything I'm talking about. And it's really made that whole idea of being a little bit frustrated when you're not really prepared for our meeting, but I'm able to get past that and we can still make a meaningful appointment on account that at least I can share this visual with you as I'm explaining it.
yeah.
There's another question come in, and I think it's probably going to be the last one before we wrap up. Do you see your preparation for these appointment sessions change in terms of what you're telling students to prepare for as they come for the meeting and how you're preparing? Do you see a change in that?
That's a great question because I think sometimes in person they come in very unprepared and sometimes they come in very prepared, and I feel the same is on the phone appointments. That's just my experience, but.
You know, for the most part, all of my appointments, I have not made, for the most part, my appointments. My appointments are made for me. And so I haven't had to go into a lot of detail about with students about how to prepare for the appointment. But the significance is, I think, because we're doing it from home now, students are right there in their home environment with all their stuff there. And if they don't have it, they can get it right quick. You know what I mean? Because they're right there at home, able to just reach out and get exactly what it is they need. So I think
Right. I think we've all experienced somebody driving and making a trip to campus, and then I left my ACT score sitting on the table.
Yeah.
And then you're not able to get into those English or math courses on account of that one little setback. But now they're able to just kind of walk over to their kitchen table, right, Robert?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Awesome. I think
I would
yeah,
like to
Gloria.
add something really fast. Basically, I would like to quote Dr. Kevin Fitzgerald yesterday. He stated that nothing really should have changed, even though we know that a lot changed, but the main, the center of what we do should not have changed. And this is because we should already be doing our very best for our students. We should abide by the academic advising mission statement. In fact, when I got hired by MCC mission statement, one reason that I thought I was a good match for Metro is because of the mission. And I'm going to finish my statement by reminding us our mission statement, the academic advising mission statement states that MCC mission is to deliver relevant student education to a diverse community of learners. And what Dr. Kevin Fitzgerald was trying to say yesterday was that we should have already been doing this, meaning we are doing the best that we can for our students. And I believe that was true before, and that is true now, and it probably will be true after. The team, we all work together to help our students in one of the most difficult times that I remember in the history of not United States, America, not our continent, but in the world as a whole. We all went through this together. And I think every academic advisor that really believe in the mission of helping their students is doing their very best, or should be doing the very best. Exactly that, no matter what the circumstances at that moment or moment. So
Yeah.
What a
Thanks.
great way to end. I know Nina has some things that she has to share prior to this ending. So Nina, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for amazing panel once again. Thanks for being vulnerable, sharing your difficulties and challenges. I know it resonates across campuses, across colleges, across institutions, whether you're 4-year or 2-year college like us. All the sessions we recorded, they will be available after the conference is over. We do have a lunch break, a much needed break from 12:30 to 1:10, and then 1:15 we have our big hitter for today, which is our Awakening, a panel discussion on advancing equity, inclusion, and diversity in higher education amid the coronavirus pandemic and community unrest. We have 3 really big names join us today, Dr. Sade Kosoko Lasaki, Dr. Tyler Quinton, and Dr. Christopher Witt. So please be present if you are signed up for that session. 1:15 it will start. And then I do want to mention that we're thinking of having a sort of little net, because I've had some emails asking for it, that we might just close out today after our president speaks with a little bit of a networking session, so that everyone can kind of exchange details and sort of connect a little with each other. And stay tuned for that. I have no idea how we're going to work that out, but we are going to try. So, all right. So thanks, everyone. Have a great lunch, and we will see you later.